How do you foster your creative outlets in a way? You know what I mean? And like how is it something that feels like it comes naturally?
I run on it.
Hello, everyone. What's going on? My name is Nils, and this is the Backcountry podcast, a show aimed at providing insight into the outdoor industry by interviewing people who operate within it. Today, I'm going to be talking with Rio Lakeshore, a runner at heart, but you don't have to dig deep for too long to understand that Rio's outlook on life goes far beyond the simple act of running. From what I've gathered, he's a very introspective person, and I'm stoked to dive into today's conversation. Rio, what up, dude?
Nils, how you doing? That's a hell of an introduction, man. I hope that...
Anytime, yeah. I think we're really setting ourselves up for success there. Should be a good time. I figured easing into this conversation, we could maybe start with something light. And I figured I would just open up with asking you, what do you think the meaning of life is?
Wow. That's massive. Something light. No, that's a good one. Just lightweight. I think that we're here to gather as much information as we can before whatever happens.
Phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would almost say, I feel like the way, I don't know, the human experience is like a word that keeps like circling back into my head. I don't know. It's like an interesting question. I feel like you never really actually ask yourself or discuss it, but you can end up in like an interesting place. But, I think it was kind of cool doing some background research on you and sort of getting some perspective on your running. And even before we started chatting, you used the word portal, like running is sort of just this like access point to do all these other things. Maybe let's just start there. You want to expand on that? As humans, we have like an understanding, or we've built certain things. We've built a home as shelter. We've built cars as our vehicles. We also partake in sports, things like that. And I think the approach to any of that is getting something out of it. What does your home do for you? Where does that vehicle take you? Running is that for me. It feels a bit in vain to just be a runner, and that's all I'm doing, for the physical task. Like, I set an intention when I run. So when I say portal, it's like, what door am I going to step through today on this run, or this race, or whatever community running experience, like what door, what epiphany, what am I going to be shown? Yeah. What's my intention? Where do I want to try to take this experience?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the cool thing too. And we'll cover everything. I mean, we're going to go full circle here, but even just to like lean into that a little bit more, I think, I don't know, there's something really empowering with the simplicity of running in a way. And it allows your tennis, calculus experience, whatever you want to call it, to really pan out in numerous ways.
Yes, I agree. It's innate in us. I think everyone is born to be a runner. It was a means of getting from point A to point B, to getting your food for survival, to feed the community or the tribe. So it's something that's very innate in us. But yes, it is a very simple thing, and I think that's the
beauty of it in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. There's no need to like overcomplicate it. It's almost just as naturally, innate as breathing or waking up, or like we've done it as humans forever.
Yeah.
Have you? I was late to the party, but I read Born to Run last summer for the first time. You're familiar with that book, or at least you're probably familiar with like the topic.
Of course, yeah. I've read it. I've listened to it. Yeah, that was a very aha moment when I read that book, or not aha moment. It was just more like
affirming, maybe.
Affirming, yeah. Like, okay, because I don't know if I'm stepping ahead, but
you're chilling. We can take this wherever we want. We're going full circle no matter what.
Okay.
I haven't really focused so much on the competitive side. While I do have a part of me that enjoys that, I've always had running as, a way of life. And that, that book perfectly illustrates that, and the innate ways of running and the things you don't need for running, how it's just...
It's so simple.
Yeah.
I think what was really cool and like maybe what changed my perspective on running, and I'm curious if you've experienced this, or maybe this just came naturally to you, because I think it does come naturally to some people, is that I always kind of saw it if I were to try, and honestly, it changed my perspective on a lot of things as far as physical activities went. And there's a section in the book that the guy was talking about how the Tamahara, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, their outlook on running was like, it was playful and they like got to do it. Right. It was their perspective of it. It wasn't a chore as to be burdened with pushing yourself to win the race or to get to point A to point B as fast as possible. It was just like, what? I get to do this. I'm psyched. Like, this is so natural as part of who I am. And taking that mindset into, my day-to-day life, my professional skill set and all those things, I feel like gives you a really cool, more like sustainable experience. And it seems like, I guess I'm curious, is that something, from what I've gathered, it seems like that's a way you approach your activity, and maybe it's like, did that come naturally for you?
No, it's something I had to cultivate over time. But, for instance, I don't call myself a trail runner. I call myself a trail dancer. When you're dancing, it's out of fun and joy. Like a vibe. It's something kids do when they hear music. It has two different reasonings, but that's part of it, So that definitely resonates with me. That's story.
Cool. Yeah. Now I kind of want to back things up a bit and maybe even just get like some context to it, maybe like some origins. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I'm a bit of a hybrid. So I started out in Inglewood, California, and that's close to the LAX, to the airport. There's not due to all the smog and the marine layer,
Yes.
There's no mountain in sight or any outdoors adventure in sight. So from there, I moved to the high desert. My mom moved us up there in the Mojave, Apple Valley to be exact. And that's where...
Outdoor.
That portal, yeah.
What was that like? What were your early experiences going from a pretty urban environment into the outdoor space?
The first night that, we had all day of moving, but the first night I saw my first shooting star, which is pretty, it's something that's like frequent out there. But to me, that was like, oh, I need to be around. I need to see this. I need to be exposed to this. I can't believe I've never seen this. There was the Mojave, and then from there I moved to the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is, that's a different terrain from the desert, but a whole new understanding of the outdoors that I didn't explore. So I have this appreciation with being a hybrid, calling myself a hybrid of city life, urban life, whatever you want to call it, desert, in the abyss of nothing, 6,000 people at the time in Apple Valley, and then moving to the Pacific Northwest, and never have I ever been engulfed by so much greenery.
Density.
Yeah. And the clarity of the air, and it's really powerful. Yeah.
Oh, I kind of understand that. I had a slightly opposite. So I grew up in Vermont.
Okay.
And it's a very kind of similar, some parallels to the Pacific Northwest, bunch of green, a lot of hills. You're like super encapsulated. I was extremely fortunate to grow up in like a very outdoor and nature focused community. But the shift of moving to Utah and kind of getting that desert expanse exposure is something that is so profound for me, because I spent the first part of my life and formative years of my life knowing the East Coast, and then getting to experienced how like wide open and like
right.
open the spaces is. There's a dichotomy between the two, but there's also just something so cool with the fact that they're like natural spaces of the world, and there's just different ways that you kind of interact with them.
Exactly. We adapt, right? It's like, that's kind of how I go about my running. Like I used to be like, got to stay on the trail, but I'm like, you know, maybe I'll hit the road today, you know?
Yeah, totally. What was your kind of early introduction then to maybe running or sports and athletics? Like, did that happen when you moved to the high desert?
Well, you know, as a child, so like elementary school age, I did like park and rec basketball, but I never succeeded at it. I wasn't a good player at all. I think my family wanted me to play basketball because I've always been taller. And
the burden of being tall.
Right, yes. It's so awful. You gotta play So, yeah, I continued that. I played basketball once we moved to the high desert. But that is kind of what forced me to run. And even then, I'm going ahead and stepping back right now with this.
You're chilling.
You know, it was all accidental and all on purpose, all by purpose, I should say. Running found me because it was a means of transportation for me. Like, my parents were doing the 6-hour to Los Angeles, back to the high desert, driving. And I had too much pride to ever ask for a ride anywhere, like to basketball practice, for instance. And I would just run to basketball practice or run to a friend's house, you know. I was just too prideful of a kid. And the way I grew up was just kind of like, figure it out, you know?
Yeah. It seems as if you're maybe in a position that maybe a lack of resources then kind of led to like base of...
I don't know if it was lack of resources, maybe lack of a bicycle, but... or the lack of confidence to get on a public bus, you know, which again was probably my pride. No, I was just I was too prideful to ask for help to get somewhere. And that made me run everywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Where do you think that came from then? Like not wanting to...
I think...
Like, was it the idea of like, oh, I don't want to have to rely on the bus system or put someone else in that position where you're like, I can do this on my own?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, maybe the original reason that it was so instilled in me was probably seeing how hard my mom worked and not really wanting to burden her with anything. When your parents are driving 6 hours a day to and from work, you're not like...
trying to put up more on their plate.
Yeah.
And it shows too, as like a kid, I could understand that. Like my parents worked so much when I was younger, and it was almost like, in a way I would almost get this positive feedback loop that it was like, oh, the more independent I am, the better like of a son I can be. Yeah. And like, I love my parents. So you kind of like end up in that cyclical state. Sure. And it's interesting because you kind of end up at an early age, you like end up in some spaces where you're like, looking back on it as a bit more of an adult now, I'm like, whoa, like maybe I shouldn't have hitchhiked as much. You know?
Exactly. No, that's real, man. That's real. I did a lot of stuff like that.
So then, you're kind of just like naturally running and finding your way into running. And I take it at that period too, it's just like something you kind of did. And at some point there had to have been a click that you're like, oh, this is like something I want to maybe pursue, or like, oh, what? There's trail run races, or you know what I mean? Like, how did that kind of like segue happen that you're like, oh, I have free time, I'll do this for fun now?
Oh, it was never that. Yeah, it was just kind of interesting. It was just a way of life. I don't know. It was like, all right, so I guess you can call it fun, but
it was very like, it was like a utility. It seemed like at first.
At first, but then, I consider myself a very spiritual person, and I've understood spirituality from an early age.
and this could have been runner's high that, you know, contributed to it. But I just loved the feeling and how cathartic it was. So it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're riding your bike really fast. Like, I don't know, I just got this wonderful feeling that made me want to keep doing it. And the competitive aspect of it, or, you know, being a runner in school, I just did not pay attention to that stuff. You know, that was so foreign to my idea of running, you know.
Yeah, totally.
You know, people shoot hoops. They like to shoot hoops, but they're not necessarily going to join the basketball team.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that came way later. The competitive part coming into my consciousness, like.
How did that pan out? Like, was there maybe a point that you look back on and you're like, oh, that's when like my perspective adjusted at that time to approach it in a competitive sense? Like I take it, you know, because as you said, sort of running has turned into maybe a bit of this platform or a portal as part of an aspect of your identity.
Right.
And having, like, getting to that point where, you know, it's maybe you're like, oh, this is a stepping stone for me to do other things, like to race or to pursue my physical ability intentionally in a way, instead of just like getting to basketball practice. Was there a time that acknowledgement or realization sort of came into play?
It had to come through many years of maturation. Like I had to step away from the grind of running and all that stuff and put it down for years. And then I was in I'm older now, I'm 37, but I was probably
Spring chicken, dude. You're chilling.
When
quick, the age thing, real quick on that. There was a part in Born to Run, I don't know if you remember this section, about age. And it was a study done on, I think, Boston Marathon racers, and how they were comparing times as to like, quote unquote, like what's a competitive age range.
Right.
And the age range they settled on was like, it was like 28 to like 63 or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, that kind of speaks to what I was going into. You know, it's
cool
to accept the amount of mileage. You know, I like to run far. To accept that, you have to be mentally mature. You know, so I throughout my teens, I ran, but I wasn't. It was just something I did. Throughout my early 20s, I partied, and I didn't get out and run. But I ended up having my first son, and something kind of clicked, you know, where I was like, well, first it was like, I need to get my mind right. I need to get my body right, you know. And the obsession came with it again. The obsession I had when I was a kid, you know, of feeling that amazing feeling. And then I understood that I was kind of talented at this, you know. That
Had you experienced that before until that point of like, oh, I'm good?
I was.
Were you a talented athlete always?
Athletic, yeah, in school. I mean, but I grew up with the fear of fitting into so many different. I was kind of a chameleon where I hung out with so many people, and I was always fearful of this group, you know, seeing too much of my athleticism, or this group seeing too much of the artistic side of me. So, which was a detriment to myself, because I could have just been successful at that, you know.
Yeah, you could but at that early age, you just like don't know. It's like, ever talk to any teenager, right? I look back at myself as a teenager, I'm like, oh man, could have just like done a few things a little more like yourself.
Right. Yeah. In hindsight, yeah.
What was it like kind of getting into your first distance race and your first distance run? Was like, and let's say, in my mind, I mean, I don't know, we like in the culture of running, it seems like the word distance running kind of that covers a broad range of mileage, but let's just say like kind of going past your traditional marathon benchmark. Was that something you just kind of started doing out of curiosity on your own?
Yeah, you know what? I haven't run a road marathon to this day. I've like skipped it. I did 5Ks, 10Ks, and then half, and then I was like, oh, let me hop over marathon and do 50K and then keep climbing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started off as like doing 5Ks. What happened was I had moved to Australia.
What brought you to Australia?
My partner, I shouldn't say partner at the time. She'll kill me if I say partner at the time. So we'll address her as Alana. You guys are going to take this out, right? I fell in love with a wonderful Australian woman, and we moved to Australia, and I was back in nature. I was in a new terrain. It's coastal, and I wanted to run, and I got in with a good running community out there and started getting coached every week. I was doing like some of the local 50Ks and things like that, which is all road, not my favorite. And that's kind of like where I started. And then I'd put it down for a little bit because I was also a musician out there, and then, pick it back up. But it was when my son was born that I really went in and started doing a lot more half marathons. And then, mind you, I'm not like well versed in, trail running history, ultra running. Like over time, I've learned about the legends, and I'm a huge student of all of it and appreciate all of it. But at this time, I'm still unaware of what I could be doing until I do it. And then I do it, and I'm like, oh, like
Sick.
This is, I'm sitting up here at, top 5, top 10, it's, and this feels good. But that was like, it took us, there's lots of time in between, but it took us to move to California, and me kind of fall back in love with the West Coast or California to really hone in on this trail running and longer distance running.
Yeah.
So.
With your approach to it, like, it seems like you as an individual, there's like numerous kind of layers going on to you as just a person. Mm-hmm. And do you ever, sports, maybe any passion or any like cultural passion, art, music, business, sports, whatever, it's very common that, and even right now in our conversation, that you kind of get like categorized into a bucket, and that's how people can see you. And even like in my world in snowboarding, it's very common that like from a marketing standpoint, because I'm work with marketing teams, and that's kind of how you get supported, is like you're sort of categorized,
right.
And how you try to like, if you try to break that mold, or if you try to like walk outside of those lines, it can be a little, for me, it can feel unnerving. Mm-hmm. Is that something you kind of feel like you experience in running? Because even like talking with you a little bit, it seems like, you're saying, oh, I like played music and my art, and I want to get into fashion in a second.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate that? And maybe a way to think of, like, a way we could start that conversation too is, what % of your headspace is filled with performance running or running in general? You know what I mean?
On a performance level.
Yeah, like for me, like I think about pro snowboarding.
Right.
It's probably in my mind that aspect of my life, and all things accounted for it. I probably spend 60%, maybe 50% of my time there. Whereas like other pro snowboarders will say they're like 100%.
Yeah.
I don't think outside it,
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't think about it till I toe the line. The competitive aspect of it, I think, like I said earlier, with the whole trail dancing thing, I'm really trying to take the element of it being this thing I have to do. I know, like, every person is different. I know top level athletes are they have their regiment, they have their way of thinking, but this is like the way that works for me, where I don't put too much pressure on the act, the performance, and just show up on that day. Of course, I have to train, but it's a thing of bliss through training, bliss through, and it's not always blissful. It hurts sometimes, you know.
Can I like extend on that? Because I wanted to kind of talk about that too. You know, from my perspective, running, distance running, my experience and what I've observed in other participants is the head game and how mental it is. Even just for starters, like I'm sure it doesn't, you know, when you're going on a huge run or if you're racing especially, it probably doesn't always feel like you're just happily dancing along. I would guess that there's probably some brutal physical, mental places that you've ended up in, and like, how do you approach that space, and maybe how do you try to like stay in line and not quit even, or just like, you know, stay motivated to keep going?
There's been times where I DNF'd. But the times where I just kept going, it was something I had to pull out of me of, I've been here before, I've felt this before. Like, the thing about running is I don't know this about any other endurance sports because I'm not into those, but I know with running, you have pain caves, but you, on the other side of the pain cave, you feel better. Like, your legs might feel trashed, you know, in one moment, but holding on to the fact that this too shall pass is like probably the biggest thing that I hold on to. And that also comes from like life experience. You know, I guess we're all kind of endurance athletes as dwellers of the earth. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We'll have that like mental resilience. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about, I guess, just like mental resilience is maybe a way you could look at it.
For sure.
Versus just like, oh, I want everything to be as comfortable and accommodating as possible. And to me right now, and instead of being like, here's my toolkit that I can kind of, in my mind, that I can like lean into or trust to know that, okay, yeah, it sucks now, but like, because of this, that, and the other thing, let's keep going. And I'm pretty sure it's going to get better. Right.
That speaks to the, you know, the experiences that, you know, life throws us all sorts of things, but, you know, when the next hurricane rolls around, you can kind of make your way through it.
Hold your course. Yeah. Are you familiar with the, and this is maybe a bit bigger picture, are you familiar with, it's called the window of tolerance? It's like I think it's like a psychology term, but there's like, essentially you can kind of look at like each of us as having this window of tolerance. And when you're inside of that window, you like are making clear decisions, you're focused, you're calm, you're present, you're not scattered. And then something like you trip on your mid race or something, or like you get a really bad phone call or something happens and you go outside of your window, and sort of you can end up like above your window is hyper. So you're like very erratic and like angry and disarray. And then, or you go hypo and you like shut down and you're quiet and you're sad or something like that. With maybe your approach to running, I'm curious if you experience that even on like a micro scale in like the more distance races or like just distance runs you've ended up on, where you get like surprised in a way. And what's your approach for trying to come back and get like back in your rhythm?
Man,
I know it's a big question in a way, but I feel like it's probably a space. It's like from endurance athletes, I think it's something that all endurance athletes are intimately in tune with.
For sure.
And it's a really, I think it's a unique thing, and it's cool to kind of get, you know, someone like yourself's perspective on it.
Yeah, it's almost a thing of not knowing how the hell I got through what I just got through back there, but I've made it on the other side just by persisting and I can't give you like some,
No, you're
you
chilling.
know, magic like place to dig.
Sometimes it's just like doing nothing.
Right.
In snowboarding, we call it, it's like hollow head
Okay.
is what we'll call it. Or
Yeah.
like, we'll say someone's like, oh yeah, they're very hollow be thine, which is like nothing going on upstairs and they
Right.
can just execute.
Yeah.
Like, don't overthink it.
Letting go. Yeah.
Letting go.
That's a bit
Letting
of,
go
yeah,
is a good way to
that's
think
some,
about it.
That's some mindfulness right there. I mean, it's like, I guess, you know what I do? I focus on, and this is the beauty behind not running. I mean, I guess you could do this on the road too, but if you're running in an ultra race, like sometimes you don't see anybody for miles, you know, or until like the next checkpoint. But in those times, you can focus on all of the outside elements. There's trees, there might be birds chirping, there might be a plane overhead. Like I think what I really try to do is kind of focus on those things rather than whatever pain cave or whatever trouble I'm in at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to take my mind off of it for a bit. And then by the time I check back in, it's probably over with, whatever bad spot I was in.
Yeah. Have you spent time kind of getting into like sports psychology and read books on it or anything like that?
Yeah, a little bit. Mike Spino is a guy that I'm fond of. He was a sports psychologist. There's also George Mumford, Mindful Athlete. You know, he wrote that book.
I'm not familiar with that one.
George Mumford, The Mindful Athlete is an incredible book. You should read it. There's, you know, I have a theory that Mamba mentality from Kobe Bryant is directly correlated.
I'm not familiar with that either. I'm sorry. Give me a rundown. Oh, my bad.
Oh, man.
I got Mind Gym written down. That's the only like psychology, but in the Inner Game of Tennis, those are the two I've read.
Oh man.
What's the Kobe Bryant one?
Well, Kobe Bryant's Mamba mentality is, so I'll tell you why I think it's correlated to George Mumford. George Mumford is, let's take it back to Chicago Bulls. Phil Jackson coached a team, you know, Michael Jordan was on there.
Familiar with that.
Yeah.
I watched The Last Dance. Maybe that's
That team.
I'm sorry. There's a chink in my armor here as far as sports goes, and I know about outdoor sports, and I know nothing about traditional sports.
It's okay. I
figured it's a safe space, so I could share that with you.
Absolutely, this is absolutely a safe space. You know, Phil Jackson was the coach to that team, and he wasn't your traditional coach. Sure, they did drills, they did all the basketball stuff you do, but he wanted to bring in a mindful element because the mind is a bigger muscle than any of this, I believe. So he brought George Mumford on, who was a sports psychologist. He taught the Chicago Bulls how to meditate and how to visualize. And, well, we know what they did. They won. They went on to win lots of championships. Fast forward, Phil Jackson is the coach for the Lakers. And he brings on, once again, George Mumford. And he taught people like Kobe Bryant how to meditate, how to visualize, how to build the mind. And we see what happened there, you know? It's my understanding that Mamba mentality, like a black mamba, you know, what do you know the characteristics of a black mamba?
Snake.
It's a snake. I think it might be a very aggressive snake that is just like
hyper-focused.
Yeah.
It's lethal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Kobe took on that. He took on the black mamba. He took on the mamba mentality, but it comes from George Mumford, I think.
Yeah.
Because as soon as George Mumford hit the Lakers, Kobe was just
hyper-focused.
Yeah. It wasn't all about the physical element of basketball. It wasn't about doing drills. It helped him. He was in the gym every morning lifting, and then he'd go on to do however many three-pointers and layups, things like that before the team even got to practice. But he had a very strong mind, and that's
Totally, man. No, man, it's cool.
Full circle.
I want to talk about, you touched on meditation for a bit then. Do you meditate? Is that part of like your...
It's been, I've had a relationship with it for a while, and it's one of those things where I've fallen off and come back to it. You know, in this present moment, I'm not doing the practice that I used to do, which was to rise at 4 a.m. and sit at the edge of my bed, you know, and kind of visualize how I wanted the day to go. And it's about seeing, or this is how I would approach it. It's about seeing the hardship, acknowledging it, letting it pass, you know, inhaling, exhaling, moving on to the next thing. You know, I have 2 kids. Every day, you know, it's a task. You got to get up, feed them, take them to school. You know? So I would use my meditation in that way. And it has more of carried over to brief visualization. And it's not so, due to like schedule and stuff, it's not so in depth. But, you know, my form of meditation is before I go hit whatever trail I'm going to hit, to visualize a favorable situation. Like, today's going to be a good running day. Like, I know this trail. I know what I'm going to see. I know what I'm going to hear. It's going to be a pleasant, you know, situation. So, yeah, I don't do the form of meditation I used to do, but I guess I'm kind of doing it all through.
Dude, it comes in like such different forms though too, and I think what's cool about especially pioneer sounds like a pretty obnoxious word for me to use, but like I think like a lot of sports and like modern sports we're seeing, there is like kind of some like meditative and psychological pioneers that we're seeing, as far as like great athletes and even like physical accomplishments and whatnot. You know, I can think of on my end, if I'm not sure you can categorize, or maybe you do categorize visualization. I suppose visualization, it helps to be in a meditative state, but that's literally how I do my job. And like, if you call snowboarding my job, right? It is strictly close my eyes, sounds, smells, temperatures, feelings, and just really trying to absorb like everything external. How am I feeling internally? How can I feel internally? Right. When I like transpose myself through like the jump I want to hit or the space I want to hit, and even, you know, the spinning and like
incredible stuff.
It's
wild.
It's different. It's like, you know, and like, so all the sports are incredible in their own way, which is rad. And I think that's something that's been cool to see, at least in the action sports space, is how big people have relied on visualization to even just try mentally map out like, oh, if I'm going to flip and spin, where like orientation wise, where am I going to be?
That's wild. You know? That's like, I can't.
But like running's, has it in its own way though, that you can visualize. And what I think's cool about running is that there's so much more. In my world, there's a lot that happens really quickly externally. But in the running world, there's so much that happens over a drawn out period of time internally. And I think there's something just innately really powerful about that, which is rad to see. And it's rad to like hear you talk about kind of having that meditative approach on it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not always on.
No,
you know?
No one is though.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you can't be. And that's kind of the beauty of what makes when you are on so valuable is because, you know, kind of how brutal it can be when things are off.
For sure. It's that flow. It's what they call it, flow state. You're just in that groove, and that feels, I'm trying not to swear. That feels incredible, you know?
It's really good.
It feels really good and I think that's why we probably keep coming back to it, because we know that feeling when it's just like, it's clicking. Everything's clicking. And,
yeah. That's cool. I like that. I like that insight. Now I kind of want to shift this a little bit away from running. And there's a parallel to snowboarding that I kind of want to dive into.
All right.
And that's fashion.
Yeah.
You know, I was kind of like looking on your Instagram and getting some background knowledge, and you model and you're in the modeling space, but I think it's, you know, pretty obvious that your connection to fashion and art and the arts goes beyond just standing in front of a camera. Maybe let's start out by just kind of diving into like, why is fashion important to you? And then I want to kind of talk about how it affects your relationship as an athlete and a runner.
Yeah, it's you know, fashion is, it's how you express yourself. We're gonna go back to basketball here, but
I was
Dennis Rodman was my guy. You know, I didn't know what the hell he was doing, but I didn't know his stats or anything. But I was just so impressed at the fact that he didn't give a fuck about what people thought he looked like or how much of a freak he was or anything. You know, that to me is like, I'm not some fashion like guru or anything. I just think I like to express myself. I look like I'm a dad, you know, just dressed like
you kind of got like a vibe though. I mean, you got
dad.
these like hip Chilby looking shoes, and you know, you got like you got the gold glasses.
Yeah.
Like there's like a conscious effort, and I think there's something to be said about that. Even I was looking at some of your videos, and you're running the old school like speed shade Oakleys.
Well, that's a callback to Dennis.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I've always felt like look good, perform good, you know, that may be just in life in general. You might just need to put on something fresh to walk out the door because you've been feeling like shit. You might need to just put on something fresh to take on life, you know. It might be that extra
It's like
kick.
that extra bit of confidence. I think there's also, I don't know, growing up, outdoorsy kid from Vermont into snowboarding.
Yeah.
My concept of fashion and my understanding of fashion was about as strongly embraced as my knowledge of basketball, which you just found out about.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And like, it's still, I don't know. I thought it was this like pretentious whack thing. And I was kind of like redneck boy from the woods that could ride POW. But, you know, having come full circle, I have come to realize that there's something really important about, okay, the sport that I do and the sport that like you do is there's so much of your individuality that goes into it, and kind of, I think like apparel and fashion and stuff like that is really important to try translate and express this almost like a story you're telling other people in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I you know, I think, and when I say inclusivity, I'm not talking about, you know, what everybody's talking about. I'm talking about people being able to say, I don't really identify with how athletes dress or how athletes carry themselves.
Because it's
But
dorky.
that's like, yeah.
it's so
Right,
look at like a
right.
mountain biker, man. You're like,
Yeah. I want that kid that's like, I want that kid that was me, that was afraid of embracing sports because there's a certain image that comes along with it, you know. I'm not like, I don't know if I'm not pushing the envelope on fashion or anything or expression, but
no, it was part of your like your vibe, which I think is really cool and important.
yeah, I'm just giving a different version of what I'm going to call myself a mover. Like, I'm not an athlete. Like, you know, I'm just giving a different version of what someone that does movement looks like, you know. That's all I'm just giving myself. I think a lot of people fall in line, and
I back it. It's something that I wish I kind of understood and leaned into, or just like accepted and appreciated at an earlier age. But it's important. I think it's cool to have that, your own vibe.
Sorry.
Go on. You seem like
the irony of you, you're like, you know, I was this redneck kid from a small town. It's funny because, you know, a lot of the fashion forward stuff now is like, it's like reminiscent of
Dude, well, you know what's actually kind of got me on board is that just I lucked out because a bunch of like things that are popular in mainstream fashion are the outdoor industry, gorpcore and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, oh, I can totally run some like, you know, Solomon shoes and
That's some streetwear right there, bro.
you know, some like a puffy like jacket. And I look cool now because of that. Like you're telling me I'm wearing a fleece.
Yeah.
You know, 10 years ago I was running fleeces and I was an idiot. And like,
I know.
just had to wait it out a little bit.
I know it. It's hilarious.
And once you're in it, you're like, this does feel pretty good.
It does.
Son of a gun.
That's what it's built for. That's what it's made for.
Yeah, totally. Well, dude, you know, I'm kind of also curious, like we've been able to like catch up and sort of touch on some running bases and some fashion stuff and sort of just getting like a bit of perspective on you as an individual, whatever, just shoot the shit and talk shop. But I was curious, you know, looking forward, what's kind of your what's your vision for like your relationship with running and maybe what you've been able to experience in we'll call it the outdoor space?
Yeah.
Do you kind of have a vision as to like where you want to go?
Yeah, forever a runner. I'll run till I can't anymore. You know, I hope to be one of those 80-year-old guys that runs 20 miles a day. But, you know, I also have a strong love for writing, for film, for, you know, just artistic expression.
There's a video that's on your Instagram of like a quick recap of just like a group run.
Yes.
And there's kind of like this fierce filter that was in it. And it was
That's
really
a video
like,
I made. Yeah.
And I was going to ask, did you make that?
Yeah, I made that video. Yeah.
Dude, that was it was like a 30-second, I don't know, how long is it, a minute? 30 seconds?
It's about a minute. It's quick. Yeah. That's.
And it clicked. I watched the whole thing and I was like, this guy's got something. I thought it was really
crazy.
cool. You know, seeing a lot of skate and snow
yeah.
media, I kind of saw some of that in there and I was curious, like.
Well, I grew up off of Baker 3 and Sorry video. Like I'm telling you, I'm a hybrid of so many different things.
Yeah.
So I was at the skate park. I was on the trails. I was playing basketball. I was at the show, you know, watching bands play. What you're experiencing, because there's also the music element in all those videos. You're just seeing every part of me, you know.
And you made the music as well.
Yeah, I mixed it. Some of it might be some of my stuff, but I've mixed it. I've like there's always a messaging within the music and the video, and sometimes I do subtitles. You know, there's always something for you to witness. I love film a lot.
Have you made a movie?
No.
Or a film?
I would love to. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, maybe.
It'd be sick. I don't know how. I mean, even just like there's a lot I think you could do, which is really cool. Like even seeing that little video kind of gives you an idea as to like your aesthetic and your vibe. And I could imagine, have you felt like your approach and perspective has been getting well received, at least in like the outdoor kind of space? Yeah,
I think so. I think there's obviously people who are kind of like, that's odd, you know. That's not how this is conveyed.
He doesn't have enough neon on.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. There's that.
He hasn't talked about electrolytes once on the show.
Yeah.
Is he even a runner?
No, I know. See, that's everybody knows about that stuff. What's your training regimen, all that stuff. I want you to see the other element of running, you know. But yes, I would love to do a film. I'm embarking on something that mixes music and running that I can't really talk about right now, but
all good.
It takes the two worlds. It's music, writing, and running. Those are my world. Like,
yeah,
you know.
Can we talk about like creativity for a second? Because, you know, it's not an extent of my imagination. I can tell you're a very like creative oriented individual. And in a way it's almost ironic because I would say a stereotype for runners is they're very like type A and regimented. How do you foster your creative outlets in a way, you know what I mean? And like how, is it something that feels like it comes naturally?
I run on it.
Can you expand on that?
I conceptualize things through a run. I visualize things through a run. I'm going to go on a run, and I know I'm going to have a concept pop in my head, or I'm going to have a visual of something that would be aesthetically beautiful. I've written several pieces, but usually the first sentence is something that comes to me in a run, and I'm able to build from there. So it's that portal again. Like, it allows me to be creative. It allows me to be all these things. Like,
was it always like that? Because it's in some way like kind of what I'm hearing, maybe connecting the dots, is like running at its origins was this like tool to get around town. Yeah. And then again, what you're describing is it's also this quote unquote tool to help you think and build out ideas.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's always been that for me. I mean, yes, it allows me to hear music. It allows me to, I don't run with headphones or anything.
I was going to ask that midway through, and I kind of caught on that maybe you didn't.
No. I want to hear myself think, and I want to hear if there's a mountain lion coming too. No, but it's...
Is there a biker behind me with 11-inch inseam shorts? That's the real question.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, it's... I need to hear everything, you know. I need to hear my footsteps. I need to be in that motion in order to conceptualize everything. I need to run on it in order to go pick up my kids from school and embrace them, you know, with... Parenting's hard. Like, it's a difficult job, but if I run on it, I can
map it out a bit more.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah. So.
Dang, man, that's really cool. That's a cool perspective. I feel like I haven't talked to as many, I guess, endurance athletes that take that approach or have that relationship with it. At least from chatting with you, it seems to be a little more unique than some of the other endurance athletes have like been able to catch up with. So it's I think it's really cool. So it's inspiring. It's just like also maybe refreshing in a way.
Okay.
Is a word or unique. I think it's just cool. It's really cool to kind of get your 2 cents on what it means to you. Because I feel that a lot of people maybe enter a bunch of these sports with a preconceived notion as to what it should be.
Yeah.
And maybe even you've probably had that observation with other writers and artists as they're trying to follow a guideline, but
yeah,
the reality is that, and the beauty is, all of these things you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
With them.
Yeah. There's an incredible book, what I talk about when I talk about running. And it's a memoir by Haruki Murakami. So it's pretty, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's him running through Greece, and it's almost like a journal of his, and it's all sorts of flow of consciousness, you know. But he's an incredible writer, and I know for a fact he gets a lot of his ideas from running, from movement, you know. That was a tangent, but I had to get that book out there.
No, man, I think that's like super powerful. I think if I had the endurance baseline, I would probably spend more time in that space. Yeah. And honestly, when I kind of, I don't know, I think I'll go on walks, and sometimes in the morning I'll just feel too stimulated of like, sometimes I like to listen to the news and walk my dog, and other times I just I'm kind of always walking my dog if I'm going out for a walk. But awesome. There's like plenty of mornings I go out and I just need to like leave everything at home and try to disconnect, especially if there's something I'm kind of festering on. If there's ever anything that, like, whether it's an idea or maybe a problem or something I need to figure out a solution to, going for a walk, and it seems like going for a run has been the best way to really get to the bottom of it and map out. And I don't know, you can just sift through so much without, because there's no distractions in a way. You have to, like, by doing the fact of walking or running, you remove yourself from the easy distractions that you always kind of can take in.
Yeah, that's healthy, man. There's a lot of sedentary nothingness going on that I think people should embrace some sort of movement. It'll help a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Mentally, physically.
Yeah. Totally. So. Sweet. Well, we've gone pretty full circle in a way, you know, or I don't even know what shape we actually shaped today.
It's like,
we've had a very fluid conversation.
Roller coaster,
but I do feel like we kind of covered a lot of ground, and it was sick to just get like your perspective and, you know, your outlook on something that maybe a lot of people take for granted or have a very preconceived notion as to what a ultra runner might be like in a way. But in reality, everyone's so different. And I think what you have kind of shared has been really insightful, and it's been a cool perspective to get. So I just want to say thank you first off. And I also just sort of wanted to open up things on your end. If there was maybe anything else you wanted to share, or any thank yous that you kind of wanted to share on your end as well.
Oh, I mean, you know, I want to thank Backcountry, of course, you know, for this opportunity. That's the thing about running. I've been super blessed to have so many opportunities, and I'm still pinching myself every day at all the wonderful experiences, the traveling, the people I meet, you know, friends I gain. And, you know, I appreciate all of that. Thank you. I want to say thank you to my mom. I want to say thank you to Alana Scott. That's my children's mom. And, she's also played an integral role in me being able to even take trips like this, or, you know, be able to follow this career, whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. It's a never-ending cyclical journey.
Yeah.
No idea where it's going, but you're staying on.
Right.
Totally. Okay. Well, dude, again, thank you. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, comment, or subscribe. And in the meantime, from the crew at Backcountry, we will see you out there.